Why do you believe it's so popular within the Black community?
I think it's a product of identity crisis for one.
Okay, now, um, identity crisis. Just a little side note. The term identity crisis was first used by Eric Erickson. It is based off of the 8 psychological or psychosocial stages, which includes trust, mistrust, autonomy, shame, doubt, initiative, identity, and intimacy. Okay. But it's not limited to ethnicity. Okay. So now the difference between the so-called Negroes identity and other nations is that Israelites, the so-called Negroes, were stripped of their identity, right? You ever stop and ask the question, why do you have the same name of somebody else in another country? John, Jane, Mary, Charles, right? Same name of people in European countries, right? You were stripped of your identity, stripped of your culture, right? So the Most High said that he would do that. We're going to bring it up in the next verse here. Let's continue.
You know, if someone is telling you this book is all about you, then it makes you feel like, oh, I am special. All these things I went through in my life, it's because.
So, no. The prophecies, as I'm going to continue to be repetitive because some people are slow in comprehending. The prophecies written in the scriptures proves who Israel is, right? That is why we embrace the identity, not because we have an identity crisis, right? Of course, when things go wrong, right, what they say an oxymoron is a person that does the same thing and get the same results, looking for different results, doing the same thing. We have had the same story as a people at large, okay? But at the same time, it says it's the prophecies that we identify with. So when we started reading, she said something in the video, I cut that part out, but when we started reading, right, when we started reading the scriptures, we found ourselves in the scriptures, said, wait a minute, that sounds like us. We going through all the things that the prophet said would happen to the nation of Israel. That sounds exactly like us, right? So we co-sign for the identity because we're looking for answers, trying to figure out why is it that we have the same story in every land where we are, right? We're the tail, not the head. We are beneath and not above, right? We are the borrower, not the lender, right? All that is what the prophet says. So we embrace that we Israel, not because of a so-called identity crisis or inferiority complex, because that's what the next brother's going to say, but we embrace it because we identify the symptoms that the prophet said in the prophecy that we would identify it with, right? Okay. Let me offer you this here since I'm thinking about it. Many Israelites aren't under curse in the lands of captivity. All Israelites, the curse is not the only sign, because we're going to let you see what the prophet said, right? So go to Deuteronomy 30. It says, it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessings and the curse, right? The blessings and the curse. So we got some Israelites in the world that are experiencing the blessings. They may not be rich like Oprah Winfrey or Tyler Perry, right? But there are Israelites in the lands of captivity that have never suffered or never struggled or suffered poverty, right? That's my testimony. I've never suffered poverty. I've been without a job, but it been inconvenient for a season and for a time, but the Most High has enabled me and my family to not have to go through that struggle. But there are other Israelites that have gone through struggles, so where they've experienced the poverty. So you have Israelites that experience blessings and cursings, right? So we know that the Most High said that he would visit the iniquities of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generations, and they hate me, right? Okay, so how do we determine who had the blessing, who had the cursing? We have to go back and look at our paternal line and see what decisions and choices that was made in that family that caused that family to be on the cursed side of captivity versus being on the blessed side of captivity, right? Remember, Joseph was in Egypt. He was blessed on the blessed side, right, of captivity, right? Then after he died, Pharaoh rose that didn't know him. Now all those people that were his seed or his siblings or his family ended up on the cursed side, except for Shemaiah or Moses. He ended up on the blessed side while he was in captivity, but he chose to suffer with the people of his kindred. Okay, now let's go back into the video here.
I am the special chosen.
A lot of Black Americans, we don't know who we are.
Okay, right. So we don't know who we are. And as you see the scripture on the screen, it says, I said I would scatter them into the corners, and I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. That's Deuteronomy 32 and 26, right? And just in case you want to see it on the screen. Okay, so 32, we're going to start right at verse 21. The Most High said, they have moved me to jealousy with that which is not Yah. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I wonder who these people are. He's going to move them to jealousy with those which are not a people, and I will provoke them to anger with the foolish nation. I wonder who that might be. For a fire is kindled in my anger and shall burn into the lowest hell and shall consume the earth with her increase and set on fire the foundations of the mountains. I will heap mischiefs upon them. I will spin my arrows upon them. Right? Let's continue. And they shall be burnt with hunger and devoured with burning heat. Oh, sounds like Africa to me, right? They shall be burnt with hunger and devoured with burning heat and with bitter destruction. And I will send the teeth of the beast. The beast represents nations, right? Who went into Africa, right? Google scramble for Africa, and you'll find out who these beasts with teeth were. I will send beasts. I will send the teeth of the beasts upon them with the poison of the serpents of dust. Right? 25. And the sword without and terror within shall destroy both the young man, right, and the virgin, the suckling also with the man of gray hairs. You can't get no more detail than that, brothers and sisters. We're talking about prophecy. He's saying this is going to happen to the children of Israel, right? Whose history is that? Who has it been documented in the archives of history that this has happened in their past? This is their history, right? Okay, let's continue, right? All right. And going back in, he said, and I said I would scatter them into the corners, right? Let's look at this corner here. It says patah, to puff, to blow away, right? I would scatter them into the corners. I will make the remembrance, what's that? 20, Zakar, memento, recollection. Oh, so the Israelites will lose remembrance of who they were? Only the remnant? Only the remnant? Paul talks about that in Romans only a remnant, right? Because only the remnant knew. Not everybody, every Israelite didn't remember that they were Israelites, right? We lost. It says here, look at it. I would scatter them on the corners, and I will make the remembrance of them to cease from among men, right? Okay. Now I'm gonna throw something else in here, right? Let me just read next verse. It says, were it not that I feared the wrath of the enemy, lest their adversaries should behave themselves strangely, and lest they should say, our hand is high, and Yah have not done all this to us, right? So now I want to go to Psalm 83 because this actually explains why or what happened. So the Most High said in the Psalm of David, the Psalm of Asaph, said, keep not thy silence, O Yah, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Yah. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head, right? So they hated the enemies hated Yah. This is what they did. They've taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones, right? They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. There you go. See that? That it may be no more in remembrance, right? That's what happened, right? You go down further, he talks about they consulted one consent, they confederate with against thee, the tabernacles of Edom, Ishmael, Moab, and Hagarine, Gebal, Ammon, Amalek, Philistines, with the inhabitants of Tyre. Now, for the Christian apologists, these people here, Edomites, Ishmaelites, Moabites, Hagarites, Gebal, Ammon, Amalek, Philistines, Tyre, they are all right in Africa today, right? All right in Africa today. So all of the Africans, some of them are Hamites, some of them are Assyrians, some of them are Eberites, some of them are descendants of Abraham, right? But they're not Israelites. And so all black people, so-called black people, are not from the same tribe. They might be from the same line, but they're not from the same tribe. And in addition to those that are Ishmaelites, Edomites, Moabites, Hagarites, Gebal, Ammon, Amalek, and Philistines, Tyre, some of them also are Hamitic, descendants of Misramites or Egypt, and descendants of Cush, Ethiopia, and descendants of Libya and Foot, Libya, and Canaan. On Canaan, actually, let me show you something that you didn't know, because a lot of people, I'm covering a lot of history here because a lot of people don't know these type of things, right? So Israelites mixed with the other nations, right? Israel mixed with the other nations, right? Israel mixed with the Canaanites. If you go to Judges chapter 3, Judges chapter 3 tells you that Israelites dwell amongst all those descendants of Ham, which is the Canaanites, right? So look at Canaan. We already know that Israel came out of Egypt and it was a mixed multitude. So you had Israelites that married Egyptians. As a matter of fact, Joseph, one of the 12 tribes, married an Egyptian daughter, the priest of On, right? A Zenoth, and she gave him Ephraim and Manasseh, right? Go figure that one, right? Then you look at Judges chapter 3, right? Let's pull up real quick. Let's just pull it out. Judges 3 says, now these are the nations which Yah left to prove Israel by them, as many as Israel had not known all the wars of Canaan, only that the generations of the children of Yasharal Israel might know to teach them to war, at least such as before knew nothing of thereof, namely the 5 masters of the Philistines, Canaanites, Sidonians, Hivites, and that dwelt from Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon, unto the entering in of Hamath or Hamath, right? And they were to prove Israel by them who, whether they would hearken to the commandments of Yah, same as today. We're told commandments, the law's over, the law's done. But they were to see whether Israel would hearken to the commandments of Yah, which he commanded their fathers by the hand of Shemaiah or Moses. The children of Israel dwell amongst the who? Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites. They did what? They took their daughters to be the wives, gave their daughters to the sons, and served their deities, right? So we see that Israel mixed with Hamitic people, right? So we can't discount that, because the scholars tell us that Ham was the father of dark races of people. We know Zondervan says that, right? Except for the Negroes, right? So we know that Israelites mixed with the whole nation, the Hamitic descendants of Ham. Okay. But just in case you're not clear and concise on that, if you go to Genesis chapter 10, always remember 10 is it's table of nations. 10 is the completion, the two hands, right? 5 on one side, 5 fingers on one side, 5 on the other. 10 fingers, 10 toes, right? 10 is the complete number of nations, right? So you got chapter 10, and in chapter 10, let's pull it out real quick and we'll get back to the video. Okay. So if you go down to Ham, you see sons of Ham were Cush, right? Cush is Ethiopia, right? We know Moses married Ethiopian, right? We know that she gave him 2 sons, Gershom and Eleazar, right? So we got Mizraim, as we talked about that. Israel mixed with the Egyptians, upper and lower, which includes the Nubians, right? Foot is North Africa, right? We read also in the book talking about how the Israelites were scattered all over the land, right? In Africa being an accurate description. And Canaan, right? Canaan is the same land that became known as Israel. So the Israelites married the Canaanites. They married the Mizraimites, the Ethiopians, and then when they got into the land of Africa after they fled, they intermingled and married amongst the Foothites, Libyans, and some of them went back to Egypt, already were there. They began to continue to mix with the Mizraimites while they were in the land of Mizraim. Just like it said in Deuteronomy 28, they went back to Egypt in ships, right? So, interesting, huh? So that's the sons of Ham. You got Cush, we got Sheba, Havilah, Sapta, Rama, Saptaka, and the sons of Rama are Sheba and Dedan, right? Cush begot Nimrod, right? Nimrod, we're going to cover that in the later part of this video. Nimrod was the father-in-law of Abraham. So Abraham's mother was a Cushite. But I digress. Let's go back to the video.
When you lose your history, when you lose your culture, and you have this kind of inferiority complex.
Okay, now he said something that was true. Okay, right. We lost our identity, and quite naturally, when you lost your identity, the people that brought us over here as slaves, they stripped us of our identity. So quite naturally, you're going to have an inferiority complex, but that's not the reason why many embrace the covenant. Like I said, we found ourselves in the scriptures. And we're like, wow. I remember when I first read that, I was like, man, I said, that sounds like us. So the term inferiority complex was first used by Alfred Adler in 1907, which is the result of trauma and abuse, right? So did we not experience trauma and abuse in these lands? Did our forefathers not experience trauma and abuse in this land? Yes, right. They passed law for those that didn't experience slavery, because we know every Israelite, every so-called nigga came over here, did not experience slavery. Okay. That doesn't make them not be an Israelite because they didn't experience slavery. Okay. But when they passed the laws, we became servants to the laws of the land, and the laws were not in favor of us, right? And that's what critical race theory is. She gonna mention that in this video, but what she says, critical race theory is not beating the oppressor, as she gonna say in this video, but it's basically showing how the systematic is designed to keep the people that's on the bottom. That's what critical race theory is. Okay. Now, so we were traumatized, abused, although it says the enslavers inflicted us. That's not why we embraced the identity. Once again, I'm going to continue to be repetitive. The prophecies written in the scriptures proves who Israel is. We identified with the prophecies. That's what Christian apologists can't comprehend. When we started reading, I remember we used to carry a New Testament Bible that didn't have the Old Testament because the Old Testament's done. It wasn't until I started reading the Old Testament, I was like, I identified with the music, right? I identified with Psalms 150 where it talked about they played skillfully with making loud noise. I said, man, look at the so-called Negro churches, man. They make noise, right? And play skillful on the instruments. And most of them haven't gone to anybody's school or university to learn how to play. We woke up, like my story was, my dad was a pastor, and he brought home an organ and said, I want to teach y'all how to play the organ, right? And I sat down and my dad showed me a couple chords. They said, no, I spent hours and hours fooling around with the keyboard until finally I learned how to play. And I've played professionally for the past 50 years. Okay. So, no, we don't. It's not because of an identity inferiority complex that we embrace the identity. It's because we identify with the prophecies of the book.